Welcome back. Now, an exploration of Black identity on both sides of the Atlantic Ocean. As We Rise is a new photography exhibition at the Peabody Essex Museum in Salem. And joining us today is Stephanie Tung. She's the Byrne Family Curator of Photography at the Peabody Essex. Hi, Stephanie. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Thank you for having me.
So what can you tell us about the origins of this collection of images and the name As We Rise?
Sure. This exhibition, it comes to us from Toronto, where Dr. Kenneth Montague began the Wedge Collection to champion artists of African descent about 25 years ago. He was looking for community, specifically positive reflections of Black life that represented who he was and aspired to be. And so this title, As We Rise, is really connected to this. As we rise, or this concept of lifting as we rise, was something that Kenneth's father always said. This idea that as you rise in life, you bring your community with you. And so that's kind of the sort of concept behind the show and the sort of themes that we're presenting here today.
Now, the photographs span decades and they depict Black life by Black photographers. How does that bring a different perspective to what we'll see?
I think that there is an inherent level of trust, warmth, ease, reciprocity, and it's incredible to see the range of photography here. You have also street style, street photography, but at the same time you have studio portraiture and self-portraiture. So there's really a range of work, but by Black photographers who are exploring and using the camera to give them a sense of dignity.
Now, this geographic focus on the Black Atlantic, for some recalls the pain and suffering associated with the transatlantic slave trade, but the photographs don't seem to exhibit that emotion. Is that intentional?
Yeah, I think this was something that naturally came about because of the way that Kenneth collected. He was looking for resonances and found them in these places that were, these countries that were surrounding the Atlantic Ocean. And so it does give us an opportunity to reflect on the legacy of the transatlantic slave trade, but it also is a concept or way of sharing or way of seeing that allows us to think about shared histories, cultures, identities across disparate communities. And so it's also a way to actually think about connection as well.
Now, the themes of identity, community, and belonging are present throughout the exhibition, and you've invited museum visitors to connect and engage with these themes, yes?
Yes, absolutely. We have added a section that's about community voices. And so it's thinking a little bit more about how these themes of community, identity, belonging, and power are really having an effect on communities in the North Shore, in Boston. And so that's one aspect. But we also have a response station. What does community mean to you? And what does the future of our community, what change would you like to see? And so that's a way for our visitors to actually interact and leave their own thoughts as well.
Now, music plays a very important role throughout the African diaspora. What role did music play in the arrangement of this exhibition?
That's a great question. I think Kenneth, from what he told me, a lot of this was originated with the idea of the Sunday afternoon salon. And so he would invite people to his home where there was a wedge-shaped gallery, which is the name of the collection. And this was where people would look at the photographs, talk about the art, but also listen to music. So there was always some sort of soundtrack playing. And so we riffed on that idea in this show to think about how music might be something that ties together and creates this sense of harmony. There are multiple voices in this exhibition. It's very polyphonic. And so that's the kind of metaphor that we're going for in the show. And there's a playlist that Kenneth curated himself that will be playing at the same time in the galleries.
Now, Stephanie, as the curator, what does bringing As We Rise mean to you as you walk through the exhibition?
Oh, that's such a good question. I mean, I think that there's just so many places that resonate. And seeing this exhibition, I've been thinking a lot about those ideas of being and becoming for Asian Americans, and that how there are themes that sort of echo throughout, themes of family and themes of belonging. And so working with Kenneth and Elliot Ramsey, the organizing curator of the show, has taught me so much, and that really let me see so much about, I think, what photography's potential can be for diasporic populations.
And photography, and particularly the images we see in this exhibit, are very helpful about changing people's images of people of color.
Oh, absolutely. I think some of this was rooted in this idea that a lot of the images of Black life that you see are very focused on labor or struggle. And so the origins of the collection are trying to find more of these positive reflections of Black life. They're very intimate, they're very human. And so that's a way in which I think Kenneth really is sharing that out to the world and sort of providing a more positive image for everybody to see.
Okay, Stephanie, thank you for joining us to tell us about this wonderful thing going on out there in Salem. As we rise, photography from the Black Atlantic is at the Peabody Essex Museum in Salem. It's on view now through December 31st. Up next, the inspiration behind a music festival celebrating Black artists in Boston. That's when Cityline continues.